Greetings, friend. Today, we are going to be reading Chameleons Are Cool by Martin Jenkens, illustrated by Sue Shields. Chameleons are lizards, and lizards are reptiles. Like snakes, crocodiles, and tortoises, there are about 4,000 kinds of lizards altogether, including around 120 different chameleons. Just over half of all the types of chameleons come from Madagascar, a big island off the east coast of Africa. Most of the others live in mainland Africa. Some lizards eat bananas. Chameleons don't. Some lizards walk upside down on the ceiling. Chameleons can't. There's even a lizard that glides from tree to tree. A chameleon certainly wouldn't do that. But of all the different kinds of lizard, I still think chameleons are the best. Chameleons are cool. Gecko's toes are as sticky as Velcro. The flying lizard glides on wing-like flaps of skin. Iguanas don't just eat bananas, they love all sorts of fruit. It's not that they're all that big. The biggest is only about the size of a rather small cat. It's called Eustale's chameleon, and it lives in Madagascar. They can be really small though. The smallest one could balance happily on your little finger. It's called the dwarf Brachysia, and it lives in Madagascar too. Whatever their size, chameleons usually get sick and die if kept as pets. They're much better off left in the wild. And I suppose you wouldn't exactly call many of them beautiful. Their skin is wrinkly and bumpy, and they've got big, bulgy eyes, while lots of them have the most ridiculous noses! I think it's their noses I like best. Their mouths are pretty odd too. They turn down at the corners, which is why chameleons always look grumpy. Actually, they don't just look grumpy, they are grumpy. So if two chameleons bump into each other, things can get pretty lively. There's lots of puffing and hissing, and sometimes there's a real fight. And that's when chameleons do what they're most famous for. They change color. A chameleon will fight only with the same kind of chameleon as itself. Lots of people think chameleons change color to match their surroundings. They don't. They change color when they're angry, or when they're too cold or too hot, or when they're sick. And there are some sorts of chameleons that hardly change color at all. As a rule, though, chameleons don't bump into one another all that often. I suppose it wouldn't be fair to call them lazy, but they certainly don't move any more than they have to. And when they do, it's almost always incredibly slowly. Sometimes they stop completely in mid-step, as if they've forgotten what they're supposed to be doing. But if you look closely, you'll see that they're actually carefully peering about. A chameleon's feet are shaped like pincers for holding on to branches tightly. Now, peering about is something chameleons are rather good at. That's because their eyes can move separately from each other, unlike our eyes, which always move together. Most of a chameleon's eye is covered in skin, like the rest of its body. There's a tiny peephole in the middle that the chameleon sees through. So while one eye is looking back over the chameleon's shoulder, the other one is scanning the branches ahead. As soon as it spots something tasty, the chameleon fixes both eyes on its prey and begins to creep forwards, even more slowly than usual. Then it opens its mouth just a crack and flap! Out shoots this amazingly long tongue with a sticky tip at the end, like a piece of well-chewed chewing gum. Chameleons feed on all sorts of creepy crawlies. The big one also eats small birds, mice, and even other chameleons. Then the tongue flies back, and there's a lot of chomping and chewing, and perhaps a few bits of insect leg fluttering to the ground. And after that, the chameleon just sits there for an hour or two, doing nothing very much at all, looking quite exhausted and still grumpy after all that hard work. Most lizards gulp their food down without chewing it, but chameleons grind everything up thoroughly. And there you have it. How could you possibly resist a pocket-sized, bad-tempered, color-changing, swivel-eyed, snail-paced, long-tongued sharpshooter? If chameleons aren't cool, then I don't know what is. The end. If you liked this story today, please support the author by buying a copy for your home library or classroom. Be sure to like and subscribe and share this video with another curious chameleon lover. Bye-bye!